Hi, my name is Zee Farrouge, and I help with communications here at Good Shepherd. I want to take this opportunity to speak with those of us with kids in our lives. Whether you're a parent, step-parent, grandparent, auntie, or an uncle, or just have friends with kids, it's important to think about our role in these kids' lives as it relates to our mission as believers. 7 years ago, God blessed my wife and I with our first child. Since then, our family has grown to include 3 boys and 1 baby girl. I've loved every moment of parenting and enjoy how God is teaching me more about himself through his little image bearers. If you're perceptive enough, raising kids is a quick way to identify your faults and deficiencies. As cliche as this may sound, raising children has been both the most difficult and the most rewarding job I've ever had. When I reflect on the weight of the responsibility that God has granted me as a parent, it feels overwhelming at times. Nothing about parenting came naturally to me. I'm not naturally patient. By default, I don't naturally look out for the well-being of others, and if I'm being completely honest, I'm not naturally a servant. I'm good at extending grace to myself, but find it difficult to show grace to others. Since becoming a parent, I've learned to rely on the advice I receive from fellow believers and seek wisdom from Scripture. One verse that I've tried to embody is from Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. It says, "Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord." As someone who didn't grow up in the church, I was playing catch-up trying to learn how a Christian raises their kids. This reminder from the Apostle Paul to bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord seemed like a straightforward command. I don't purposely do anything to make my kids angry with me, and I take them to church. Check, check. What I took away from the verse was an understanding that me and my wife as parents are essentially behavior managers. There are do's and don'ts that we must keep under control. We set household rules and expectations and dole out consequences for bad behavior. While there is definitely value in establishing boundaries with our children, we can easily fall into the trap of thinking that our job is to make sure our kid behaves well. Just like Jesus reminds us in the Sermon on the Mount, the law is important, but to stick to the letter of the law is not the point. The law is there to orient our hearts toward God. If we're bringing up our kids to be morally correct without acknowledging the heart, we're missing the point. Paul David Tripp's book, Parenting, really helped me understand what gospel-centered parenting looks like. He reminded me of the fact that we are stewards of our children, not owners. The difference between ownership and stewardship is a mindset that I had to embrace as a new parent. When I have an ownership mindset over my children, it's no surprise that I can snap at them and lose my patience when they're acting up. With the stewardship mindset, I understand that my kids are actually God's children that he's put under my watch. For all of us with kids in our lives, we need to be aware of the fact that our jobs are to lead them to Christ. Knowing this, how can we act as missionaries for the kids in our lives? Paul David Tripp reminds us that as parents, we must begin with confession. Confession that we do not have the power within us alone to be godly parents. We must be saved from ourselves, so to speak. We can't lean on our own understanding. This means we must constantly be in the Word and praying. The importance we place on Scripture and the power of prayer will act as a positive example to the little ones watching us. We can show them that God has priority in our lives by our actions. We can do our best to bring up our kids in the discipline and instruction of the Lord, and we can pray for them nonstop. But ultimately, the outcome is not in our control. However, the one thing that every single person does have control over is themselves. Your actions and words, my actions and words, will go much further in teaching the kids in our lives. When it comes to worldview and mindset, the most important aspects are caught than taught. We must embody and display the life and mindset we want our kids to imitate. Let us be a people who are always dependent on God for wisdom and grace, especially when it comes to interacting with the children in our lives.